Welcome to Globonarch, where I will tell you about everything that AI does not want to tell you about, but I find interesting. And today I'm going to delve into a book by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, a former Church of Satan and Temple of Set founder, um, and psychological warfare officer in the U.S. Army. And he wrote this book as part of his recommended policy to DoD to implement this concept of mind war, where not only would psychological operations be used to try to convince the enemy to surrender or comply in terms of a kinetic conflict, but also to completely transform society, change the moral environment, the values, basically completely upend reality for a population in order to gain compliance with whatever the policies are of, in his case, DoD. And then this is also based off a paper that Aquino wrote in the 1980s with a gentleman named General Paul Vallely, who went on to become a Fox News pundit. He's quite often on there, apparently. So it tells you a little bit about what's going on at Fox News, but let's just jump into it. This section is about subliminal involuntary psi control, or SLIPC. SLIPC, according to Aquino, encompasses the entire spectrum of natural or of external influences upon the natural processes of human thought, awareness, alertness, and disposition. These influences are both naturally and artificially adjusted to maximize a subject's inclination to receive and positively respond to both. MindWar, LIPC, which relies upon conscious sensory transmission and perception, may be supplemented by subliminal IPC techniques addressing non conscious receptors of a target actor's mind and body. Here, the objective is not to do bodily or mental damage, but rather to incline the target to be more receptive to LIPC, which is basically their um, sort of psychological warfare activities. So, what this whole section is about is what environmental and physiological factors can be manipulated by, in his case, DoD, or the U.S. Department of Defense, to make the enemy targets more susceptible to psychological warfare. Cause more fear, cause more compliance, whatever it might be. This is a number of factors like electrical fields, colors, scents, all kinds of different just sensory and subsensory sort of techniques to basically make you more suggestible. So his first one here is about he has a numbered system, and the first one he calls Homo Electromagneticus, which is, I guess, you're an electrical person. So I'll just read the very beginning part here, then I'll skip on to the parts I highlighted because they're more interesting. Along with all the matter/energy displacements in the material universe, the human body is a complex electromagnetic machine, including its thought processes. Humans, of course, don't normally think of themselves as machines, but as conscious, unique beings. This casts humanity not a physical but a metaphysical image. It explains both the basis and the attraction of religions. In the 1980s, breakthrough research in the electromagnetic constitution of man began to emerge. Dr. Robert O. Becker, an orthopedic surgeon whose curiosity has been aroused by the regenerative powers of certain animals, he set out to identify and explore the link between electromagnetic and living tissue, or electromagnetism, electromagnetism, and living tissue. He uses a lot of acronyms here. In doing so, he sought out relevant discoveries by fellow scientists. And there's a number of them here, and I could read through this because this actually might be interesting. But Francis Ivanhoe, a pharmacologist and anthropologist at two universities in San Francisco, made statistical survey of the brain case volume of all known Paleolithic human skulls and correlated the increase with the magnetic field strength and major advances in human culture during the same period. Ivanhoe found bursts of brain size evolution at about 380 to 340,000 years ago, and again at 55,000 to 30,000 years ago. Both periods corresponded to major ice ages, the Mindel and Worm, and I guess those were the ice ages. And they were also eras of great cultural advances were made, the widespread domestication of fire by Homo erectus, in the early Mindel and the appearance of Homo sapiens sapiens, or Cro-Magnon peoples, and the gradual decline of Neanderthals during the Worm. Or is that the Worm? Two other glaciations in the same time span, the Gans at 1,200 to, okay, I guess this is 1.2 million to 1.05 million years ago, and the Rias at 150 to 100,000 years ago, didn't call for such obvious advances in human evolution. They also differed from the other two in that the average geomagnetic field intensity was much lower. Now, I don't know how he knows that or how you would measure the geomagnetic field intensity at those periods. Maybe that's something to look up. There's something down there at the bottom if you want to try to fact check that. But anyways, uh, Ivanhoe proposed a direct link from the magnetic field through the growth hormone regulator pathways in the brain to account for the sharp evolutionary gains. He suggests that part of the hippocampus, a section of the brain's temporal lobe, acts as a transducer of electromagnetic energy. A part of the hippocampus called Amon's horn, an arch with one-way nerve traffic directed by a strong current flow, may read out variations in the field strength, feeding them by a bundle of well-documented pathways called the fornix to the hypothalamus, and thence the anterior pituitary, where growth hormone is produced. Okay, so whatever. What he's saying here, before I have to name too many brain parts, is uh, is that the electromagnetic strength of the Earth was instrumental in human evolution. So the human brain is therefore somehow perceptive of electromagnetism and can be manipulated thus. So I guess I highlighted this part, so it's probably a little bit more interesting. But either way, he's saying there's research that's been done to support this, and we can basically be manipulated through electromagnetism, like, cell phone towers and things like that. Becker also came across evidence from his own and others' research that certain kinds of electromagnetic radiation (EMR) can either generate or accelerate damage to living organisms. He cited the instance of the Russian researcher Yuri Kolodov, who found areas of cell death in the brains of rabbits after subjecting them to 100 to 200 Gauss magnetic fields. The fields were found to have activated stress hormones within the rabbits, but in a way that the rabbits could not consciously sense any stress. In 1969, Becker was one of the scientists asked by the U.S. Navy to review possible side effects from Project Sanguine, the extremely low frequency, or ELF, transmitter the Navy intended to build in Wisconsin to communicate with nuclear submarines. So, what he's saying is that certain frequencies, especially extremely low frequencies, can't be sensed by animals or humans or whatever, but can still cause damage to your brain. So, I mean, who knows what Bluetooth does to you? Who knows what 5G does to you? Who knows what your Wi-Fi does to you? But the reason they would use ELF here for this submarine communication was apparently because it can go through everything. So it can go through the water, it can go through the earth, all this stuff. It's not really stopped by hard matter. All right. So here in the little excerpt that he has, the only thing sanguine what we found was the name. The antenna would produce an electromagnetic field of 1 million times weaker than that from a 765 kilovolt power line. It was a broadcast at it was a broadcast at 45 to 70 hertz, frequencies close enough to the Earth's micropulsations that living things are very sensitive to them. Similar fields had been shown to raise human blood triglyceride levels, often a harbinger of stroke, heart attack, or arteriosclerosis, and change blood pressure and brain wave patterns in experimental animals. The generalized stress response, desynchronized biocycles, and interference with cellular metabolism and growth processes were also distinct possibilities. So this submarine communication thing that sent off ELFs can give you potentially a heart attack. Um, could pretty much fuck you up. So, so just think about the applications of that. you would have no idea, and people would think you were crazy if you were being attacked by it. I mean, I don't know what that like the Havana syndrome was or whatever, but why wouldn't they be using shit like that? They could just make everybody stupid in an embassy. It's a pretty good trick. The essence of the danger posed by electromagnetic radiation to living organisms is that ELF radiation of 300 to 100 hertz appears to interfere with the body's normal biological cycles. Results may include a continuous condition of mild stress throughout the organism, often triggering its various immune and disease-fighting systems. So potentially, they could even cause you to manifest some sort of illness or the inability to fight off illness just by radiating you, and you'd have no idea. Other experiments that he mentioned, experiments examined by Becker yielded implications that microwave exposure can cause decreased energy levels in the brain by inhibited electron transport chain function in brain mitochondria. Um, so I guess it can make you lazy. Uh, Even very weak, extremely low frequency or ELF fields, such as that produced by a TV set 60 feet away, can both accelerate and decrease human reaction time. So it can make you slow. And this is like a TV. Your TV could just make you slower, lazier, and not just the psychological effect. Uh, a study of suicide events in the vicinity of overhead high voltage power lines revealed that magnetic fields arranged or averaged 22 times higher at suicide. Let me read that again. A statistical study of suicide events in the vicinity of overhead high voltage power lines revealed that magnetic fields averaged 22 times higher at suicide addresses, and that areas with the strongest fields contained 40 times more fatal locations. So they make you lazy, depressed, and want to kill yourself. This is just electricity. This is like the effects of high voltage or even low voltage. It's just electromagnetic radiation that you're completely unaware of. As I'm sitting here wearing Bluetooth headsets. Animals exposed to EMR undergo a variety of blood changes, such as decline in red cell counts and hemoglobin concentration, hence oxygen capacity. So what it all comes down to is it makes you slow and depressed. They can make you very slow and depressed with this shit. EMR of the sort received by many people in home environments may reduce the strength of electrical impulses governing contraction of the heart muscles by as much as 50 times. Okay, so it can give you heart attacks. There is an increased body of evidence that cell division related diseases such as cancer are aggravated by EMR. And I'm old enough to remember back in the day, there was concern that cell phones could give you cancer, like brain cancer. Um, and then that discussion has completely disappeared because who wants to hear that? You got a phone in your pocket all day. Uh, but I also remember my parents telling me that you can get cancer from living under power lines, which seems like they were potentially right. Okay. Improperly or adequately shielded video terminals may be a factor in the extremely high numbers of women computer operators experiencing miscarriages, stillbirths, or birth defects. Must have been in it's like in the 80s. So I don't know who isn't a computer operator. So just, I guess, bake that into the cake of risks in life. And then the last part here is in 1985, when humans' exposure to EMR was considerably less than in the quote information age of 2012. Becker summarized his findings. It may be hard to convince ourselves that something we can't see, hear, touch, taste, or smell can still hurt us so dreadfully. Yet the fact must be faced, just as we've learned a healthy fear of nuclear radiation. Certain scientists, some perhaps acting in a program of deliberate disinformation, keep telling the public that we still don't know whether electropollution is a threat to human health. That's simply not true. Okay, so this is, remember, from Michael Aquino, who is writing a book on how to implement MindWar. And the first thing he wants to talk about is essentially how much electromagnetism can impact us. So he was pretty influential in the U.S. Army within psychological operations. Um, Papers he wrote previous to this book were official papers for the Army, well, not policy papers, but pitching basically tactics and um, at this point, full-on strategies for psychological warfare. So these weapons exist. Directed energy weapons are an area of high concentration in the and high funding in the U.S. military. So you better believe they use this, because the whole premise of this book, which I'm not going to get into now, and I'll wrap this up and go into some of these other sections here that are really interesting in another video. But the premise of this book is that kinetic warfare has gotten to the point where it's so destructive that they really want to try to implement basically mind fuck games instead of it. So um, his whole pitch here is to try to use these things to preempt kinetic war. And I'd be very surprised if the US government wasn't heavily utilizing this. And just think about the amount of electromagnetic radiation you're surrounded with. Who's to say they can't just use your phone to put you in a certain mood or slow you down or make you lazy? It'd be an interesting experiment. Just focus on your energy levels at home on a normal day or in the office, and just go somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, see if there's a difference. I don't know. Haven't really tried it. All right. Well, thanks for listening. I'll continue going through this book too. This is pretty fascinating stuff once you get over the fact that he's a satanic demon worshiping freak. But I mean, they're using this shit on us and other people. So something that you probably want to know about. So thanks, follow, subscribe, share this video, and thanks for listening, watching.